Hi, Teri here from Stamping Magic. Welcome back to my channel. Today's project is a shaker card. I've used the Jar of Flowers stamp set together with one of our mason jar shaker domes. The sentiment is one I had left from a previous project, and it comes from the All Things Fabulous stamp set. Now I had to do some partial die cutting to get this sentiment and the die to fit. If you're interested in seeing how I did that, I'll leave a link to a video at the top right of the screen. The papers are from the Flowers for Every Season 6-inch Designer Series paper pack. So, let's get started. These are all the measurements you need for all the elements required to create this project. So if you're interested in reproducing it, take a screenshot so you can refer to it later. This is the Jar of Flowers stamp set, and today I'll be using this floral image, a couple of the jar images and the stems. Now this is a two-step stamp set, but it's also a reversible stamp set. So the images you see shaded are reversible. So on one side they have the detail, and on the other side they have like a block stamp, a flat stamp. I'll be using the detailed image for the full jar, but the reversible image on the half jar. I'll be stamping on normal weight Whisper White card, and I'm going to start by stamping the mason jar using smoky slate ink. I'll be using balmy blue ink to stamp the water in the jar. Now this is the reversible stamp, so I've got the detailed side facing the block and the smooth side uppermost. I'm going to ink it up and I'm going to stamp it off twice. I want this to be very pale. And then I'll stamp it onto my mason jar. For the rest of the stamping, I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. Now I'm starting with the stems. And then I can stamp the flowers. The sentiment I'm going to use comes from the Borders Abound stamp set, and I'm using the Best Wishes. The flowers are going to be cut out by hand. The sentiment will be die cut using one of the stitched rectangle dies, and it's the smallest one in that grouping. And the jar we leave as is. I've added dimensionals onto the back of the flowers. I know there's lots of them. And I've double layered these, so one stacked on top of another. The sentiment just has a single layer. I'm now going to work on the mason jar. This is what the mason jar shaker domes look like, and they come in a pack of 10. You have adhesive on the back and adhesive on the front. Now before I attach it over my stamped mason jar, I'm going to add the shaker elements, and these are the Flowers for Every Season gems. So I'm going to scoop a few out and put them onto the centre of my mason jar. And then I'll expose the adhesive on the back. And position this over my stamped jar. You want to give it a firm press down to make sure that adhesive is well stuck, and then you can trim away the excess cardstock. For the front of the card I have a matte in Just Jade, and I also have a piece of the Flowers for Every Season Designer Series paper. These need to be layered together. I now need to punch the mason jar shape at the bottom of this panel, and I want it to be dead center. Now there are a couple of ways of doing this. You can either go for it, center the panel as best you can. I find it easier looking down the front of the punch and looking at each side and making sure that they appear as even as possible, and then just punch. That's not the way I do it. I like to use a template and try and get it right. Now I have a scrap piece of card that is the width of my panel, and I'm going to center the punch at the bottom of this. You just rest the card in the punch, just let it sit there, and then adjust it so the two sides look even. And once you're happy, we'll get there eventually, then I can punch it out. Then I would measure the sides to make sure they're even. If it was off significantly, then I try again on a new piece of scrap. But I have my template already prepared. Now all I'm going to do with it is lay it over my panel and then draw around the mason jar shape with a pencil. And then it's just a case of lining this up with the punch and punching out the shape. And you shouldn't have any pencil remaining on your panel. Now you might wonder why I didn't just overlay the template onto my panel, put it in the punch and then punch it. And the reason for this is because the punch would catch on the edges of the template, and it's too many layers. You just wouldn't get a clean cut if it had cut through at all. I'm going to add some baker's twine to the top of my jar, and I'm using this black and white twine which is retired, but you could use any twine that you have. Now I'm going to secure this using tear and tape adhesive, and I'm just going to position a little strip on the top of the jar, and then I can remove the backing. I'm going to lay several lengths of the baker's twine over the top of the jar, and I'm going to keep doing it until the adhesive is completely covered. I think in total I did 6 strips. and you just want to press the twine into the adhesive to make sure it's well held. I also need to make a little bow, which I'll add to the jar later on. So a bunny ear bow is just making 2 loops, and then you bring the left over the right and through, and that creates your bow, and you just need to adjust it to the size you want. And I'm going to make mine quite small. I now need to add 2 more little strips of the tear and tape adhesive over the baker's twine, so the adhesive continues all around the dome. I can then remove the backing from the tape, and then I'm able to slot the front panel over the shaker dome. Now you want to give this a good press down to make sure that adhesive has fully taken. Also for the front of the card I have a bumblebee mat, and this I've embossed using the Bricks and Mortar 3D embossing folder. I want to add a little more interest and dimension to this panel, and to do this I'm going to apply some bumblebee ink all over it, and I'm using a sponge dauber for this. So first of all I'm going to go against the direction that the bricks are laid and just lightly cover with the bumblebee ink, and then I'll finish it off going in the same direction as the bricks. My card base is in Just Jade, and this is half a standard sheet of card scored in the middle and folded to create a portrait card. Then for inside the card I have a Whisper White mat, and I'm going to decorate this with a strip of bumblebee onto which I've added some of the matching designer series paper. Then I have the brick panel, my front panel with the dome, and then my decorative elements. And that's it. That's my card complete. Very simple, very pretty card. And here's another look at my original card. This one was in Cinnamon Cider and Misty Moonlight. And then I have made a couple more. This first one is again in Just Jade and Bumblebee. I've just reversed the colours. And then this final one was actually the first one I created, so it was a bit of a prototype. There's a few things I don't like about it. The bow, for instance, which is just too big for the project, I think. And I only did one level of dimensionals. And this is in Misty Moonlight and Cinnamon Cider. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.